you would also have to agree that, generally speaking, women are paid less, for example, for the same jobs as men.
No, I would not. I would not agree with that. If you're talking about women with the same number of years of experience, with the same continuous service, etc., then when I look at that, I don't find that disparity. I find, for example, in many cases, the women are making more, depending upon how you break the data down. The difference with women is between married women and everybody else. That's the real difference. When the government did data some years ago on women who had been working continuously since high school into their 30s, there you found that they were making slightly more than men of the same description.
The fact is that in the overwhelming majority of American homes, the women also work. And therefore, I don't think your explanation that women have other responsibilities and that's why they are...
Work can mean part-time work or full-time work. Women do not work full-time to the same extent that men. Part-time workers make less than full-time
When people
workers.
say things like, the government has to do something, I say, have you ever studied what happens when the government does something compared to what happens when they don't do anything? For 150 years, the government of the United States did nothing when there was a depression. No depression during all those 150 years was ever as bad as the Great Depression of the 1930s, in which the government did more than it had ever done before.
Our friend Jason Riley published a column in the Wall Street Journal headline, according to NBC News, since 2012 there has been a 15-point shift toward Republicans among black voters, a 32-point shift among Asians, and a 38-point shift among Latinos, close quote. Donald Trump, of all people, is the one who has demonstrated that we can move beyond identity politics, that African-American males move toward the Republican side. Now, you can like the Republicans or you can dislike the Republicans, but the argument would be people are making up their minds for themselves as individuals, not simply voting on the basis of their race.
Yes, and it's one of the most encouraging developments, and one I was surprised to see come finally. One of the reasons, for example, why it's so hard to get a decent education for black kids and low-income black kids is that the black vote has gone automatically to the Democrats by huge margins for a very long time. And it's the Democrats who get the money from the teachers' unions, for which they will then allow the teachers' union to do whatever they want, regardless of whether that is bad news for the black kids who can't get a decent education. However, Jason Riley writes for the Wall Street Journal, which is an excellent publication, but unfortunately, low-income people are not likely to be reading the Wall Street Journal. And I don't know if there are enough people within the black community, leaders, who have a sufficient interest in making clear what these alternative educational things are like. That the civil rights organizations have lined up with the teachers union. And I think, quite frankly, they're doing it for the same reason that the politicians do it. They get money from them. I can remember decades ago, a black Democrat that I knew said the NAACP has become a wholly owned subsidiary of the labor unions. He didn't say that publicly, but he said to me privately. And unfortunately, that's not uncommon.
Intellectuals have a great tendency to see poverty as a great moral problem to which they have the solution. The human race began in poverty, so there's no mysterious explanation as to why some people are poor. The question is, why have some people gotten prosperous? And in particular, why have some gotten prosperous to a greater degree than others? Everybody started poor, so poverty is not a mystery to be solved by intellectuals. Intellectuals have no interest in what creates wealth and what inhibits the creation of wealth. They are very concerned about the distribution of it, but they act as if wealth just exists.
Slavery
somehow.
Has been a universal institution for thousands of years, as far back as you can trace human history. And what we're looking at is if slavery is something that happened to one race of people in one country, when in fact the spread of it was around the world. In 1776, which is when Adam Smith published The Wealth of Nations, as well as when the United States got started, he said that Western Europe is the only place in the world where there is no slavery. And even the Western Europeans had vast numbers of slaves in the Western Hemisphere,
yes,
but not in Western Europe itself. And so if you're going to have reparations for slavery,
is going to be the greatest transfer of wealth back and forth, because the number of whites, for example, who were enslaved in North Africa by the Barbary pirates exceeded the number of Africans enslaved in the United States and in the American colonies before that put together. But nobody is going to North Africa to ask for reparations, because nobody is going to be fool enough to give it to them.